Having period pain is not normal. Women suffer with this. They're told that's just part of being a woman. That is not true. This is a huge disconnect in the medical community. It's actually making things worse. Those painful periods are going to come back with a vengeance. Having period pain is a call for help from your body. It's your body telling you, hey, something is wrong. I need you to listen to me. I promise you, if you commit to this, you're going to feel so much better. And this is going to be huge for your hormone symptoms and your gut. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync, the podcast for women looking to have a safe and enjoyable transition off of birth control. Today, we are going to be diving into why your periods are painful, heavy, and just plain uncomfortable. This is one of the biggest reasons that I see women who are nervous to come off birth control because they've been told that birth control is really the only thing that will help them have pain-free periods, which is simply not the case. So it makes a lot of sense if you are, a lot of times periods are so debilitating. You're missing work, you're missing school, you're missing out on social events, you're confined to the couch or your bed for a week or more at a time every single month. Yeah, of course you don't want that happening again. And you feel oftentimes stuck with not having a solution other than staying on birth control, which whether you just want to come off the pill or, normally it's the pill that doctors prescribe for painful periods, but I know some women are on IUDs for the same thing. So I'm going to be mostly speaking to the pill today, but just know when I say that, as always, it can also refer to other hormonal birth control options like the IUD. But a lot of times women are feeling stuck, whether they want to come off and just, not be on artificial hormones. They are having other side effects from being on it. I was just talking to a high schooler who she was so sweet. She reached out to me and she's interested in becoming a dietitian and she's kind of going through her own period stuff right now. And she said, I was put on birth control because of my really painful periods. And I want to come off, but I just don't know what else to do. And she's like 14 years old or something like that. And I hear that so many times in my practice of women being stuck on, or rather put on birth control at a really early age, pretty soon after they started their period because it's painful. So instead of looking into, okay, why is it painful? What's going on? There are so many root causes that need to be addressed. They're just slapped the birth control pill and told that's their only option, which again, isn't true. So I want to dive into the ins and outs of painful periods and what you can do because there's so much in your power through nutrition and lifestyle changes to heal your periods naturally and not have to rely on birth control. So before we dive into all of that, I'm going to share how I'm nourishing myself recently. And this has been really getting back into a morning routine. I found myself, I prefer to do movement in the morning. It just makes me feel better. But I was finding myself kind of pushing off workouts or, pushing off some sort of movement during the day until later on. I would, put work first and do that instead of my workouts. And I would say, okay, I'll do it later. I'm going to finish this one thing up. And then this thing would take longer. And then by the time the end of the day rolled around, I was not feeling it. And I generally just feel better when I work out earlier. So I made it a goal for myself to get back in the routine of really scheduling my workouts and sticking to it because I know it is something that energizes me and it makes me more productive during the day. And that way I'm not doing them later when I don't feel like it. So I adjusted my routine and I'm sticking with it over the past week. And that's really been helpful for me mentally and physically. I'll get up, I'll do a little bit of work, like check emails, respond to client messages, check social media. Then I'll eat breakfast and sip my coffee, take Blue for a walk. And then pretty soon after that, I will do a workout or I'll do a sauna session. And then I'll shower. By that point, almost lunchtime. And then I'll continue on with the rest of my day. And that's been really nice. So I'm really proud of myself for recognizing that as a gap in my self-care and figuring it out and sticking with it. Let's dive in. The biggest culprit that I see for painful periods is actually inflammation. And inflammation can be multiple different root causes. Inflammation can be from gut infections. It can be from iron overload or iron dysregulation. It can be from stress, cortisol. It can be from traumatic events or just emotional stress. It can be from stress from under eating. All of these things are stressors on the body. And whenever your body is stressed out, your cycle is going to reflect that. Whether for some people it's irregular or missing periods, for some people it's symptomatic periods, PMS, heavy bleeding, cramping. So any form of inflammation is going to impact your cycle. And this is why your cycle is something really, really interesting to. It's like a monthly report card that you can go off of. And caveat, this is if you're not on birth control. So I want to put this first and foremost. You can't use your cycle as actually, I guess you can. I'll take that back. You still can have symptoms and symptomatic periods when you're on birth control. So I would say anytime you are having a cycle, then you can definitely use that as a monthly report card. Having period pain is not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. So I also want to put that disclaimer out front because so many women suffer with this and they're basically told like that's just part of being a woman. That is not true. That it is meaning something deeper is going on. That needs to be, your body is trying to tell you something and it needs to be listened to. So that's my goal with this episode, is to bring light to some of those things. So inflammation is a big one. We're going to go through at the end after I kind of identify all the root causes, like what you can do about it. But just as a prelude to that, I guess, like I mentioned, so many different things can cause inflammation. I don't really like to focus specifically on, there's some research out there about like processed foods and seed oils and sugar contributing to inflammation. But you all know I'm really big on, all foods can fit in moderation. But yes, if you're consuming these foods in high quantities, that can lead to inflammation. But I'm more so often seeing in my practice really, really healthy women who have really good foundations, and they more so are on the under eating side of the spectrum. And I just don't like to eliminate any foods. Like I sometimes will have processed foods. I sometimes will eat seed oils, and I definitely eat sugar. It's all about that moderation and making sure you're fueling yourself with nutrient-rich foods in addition to those fun foods as well. The next root cause of painful periods are hormonal balances, which this probably isn't a surprise, but whenever you have an imbalance in your hormones, it's going to throw things off. So one of the books I first started reading about hormone balance, it likens your hormones to a band. And so like estrogen's your singer, progesterone's like the guitarist, and testosterone is the pianist. And whenever one of those things is off, the whole band is going to be off. So it's not just one hormone, they all work together and they all have to be in a very delicate balance, kind of like your gut, which we'll go to. So one major imbalance is estrogen dominance. So this could be just purely too high levels of estrogen. It can also be due to too high levels of estrogen compared to progesterone. And this can lead to heavy and painful periods. It can also lead to, there might be like poor estrogen detoxification, gut issues. Your gut has what's called estrobolome, which is part of a recycling system of estrogen. So if there's gut issues with estrogen detox and recycling, then that can impact estrogen levels. Or it could be you might have high estrogen due to exposure to xenoestrogens, which are highly toxic components that mess with your hormones and your hormone receptors. The other thing could be low progesterone. So you might have normal estrogen levels, but your progesterone in relation to that is too low. So this can make it seem like you have more estrogen dominant symptoms like painful heavy periods, cramping, when in reality it's not your estrogen that's the issue, but it's low progesterone. And I oftentimes see low progesterone in women who are under eating, chronically stressed, over exercising. That's very, very common. High testosterone and DHEA can contribute to pain and irregular cycles. This is something specifically those with PCOS. We want to be careful with that though, because with PCOS, sometimes this is given as like an umbrella term. I feel I feel like nowadays it's kind of in the IBS category of like, we can't really figure out what exactly is wrong with you. Therefore, you have IBS because you have stomach issues, but we can't figure out what it is. You have PCOS because you have hormone issues and we can't figure out what it is. So I think a lot of clinicians are really, they jump straight to PCOS a little bit too quickly without having all the information about it, because there are so many things that can cause hormone imbalances that don't fall under PCOS. But high androgens can contribute to period pain as well. Another big one is nutrient deficiencies. This one does not get talked about enough. And obviously, I'm a dietitian. I'm huge on nutrition and food first. Tons of nutrient deficiencies can cause period pain. Specifically, magnesium deficiency. Magnesium helps relax muscles and reduces cramping. There's really cool research out there that the week before and the week on your period, you need more magnesium. So I know personally, I will bump up my my intake of magnesium-rich foods and supplementation. And I don't have a bathtub right now, but if I did, I would take some magnesium salt baths, because that not only helps with nervous system, but it also will help get that magnesium level up. And magnesium is one that I typically recommend all my women supplement with, because I've seen through practice that most people are low in magnesium, just because our soil is low, our food system is low, and there just aren't that many foods that are high enough in magnesium to make for sure that we are getting adequate amounts. And stress makes you burn through magnesium like crazy. And I think we can all attest to we are stressed in some capacity. The next one is B vitamins, specifically B6. This is important in hormone metabolism and reducing PMS. B vitamins are most prevalent in animal sources. So especially if you are following more of a vegetarian diet, really being intentional about B vitamin supplementation. And this is where working with a provider of like, which supplements do I need? Which ones am I okay in is really, really helpful. So you're not guessing and wasting money on supplements that you don't need. Deficiency in omega-3s as well. These are healthy fats that balance inflammation in the body. And we tend to have higher intake of omega-6s, which are more inflammatory compared to our consumption of omega-3s. So omega-3s are going to be in, again, animal products, fish sources, dairy products, and these are really healthy fats that reduce inflammation. And the next one is iron deficiency. So this can worsen fatigue and exacerbate menstrual pain, especially if someone has heavy periods, which a lot of times when someone's having really bad cramping, it's accompanied by heavy periods or heavy blood flow. We want to be careful with this one because there could also be iron recycling issues or iron overload issues. So this is what I'm saying with caution. And that's why with all my VIP clients, I do a full iron panel, because we're looking not only at serum iron, but we're looking at, okay, how is iron being transported? How is it being recycled? Like all the different components of it. Because a lot of times clinicians will just look at serum iron or iron saturation. And if that's low, they'll jump straight to iron supplementation. But if it's truly they have iron recycling issues, that's going to make things worse because it's going to overload the iron in the tissues, which is a form of inflammation, like I said earlier. So we want to be careful with that, but that is something that could be deficient if you're having a heavy flow. Gut and liver dysfunction. So we talked a little bit about poor estrogen detoxification. The liver is the organ responsible for breaking down excess estrogen. So if that is sluggish, that can cause a buildup of estrogen, as well as other toxins like those xenoestrogens that we discussed earlier. Birth control puts a lot of stress on your liver. And I guess going backwards, birth control depletes nutrients like magnesium and B vitamins. Birth control causes inflammation of the gut and in the body in general. So this is where putting someone on birth control for painful periods, it might mask that for a period of time, but it's actually making things worse. It's making these root causes worse. So then when someone comes off of birth control, if you don't properly repair the body ahead of time, and that's what I help women do, is why it's so important to prep your body for at least 3 to 4 months prior to stopping birth control to repair these deficiencies and imbalances. You're going to have a terrible time, and those painful periods are going to come back with a vengeance. So Really, really important to recognize this. This is a huge disconnect in the medical community of, oh, you can just stop birth control. And if you have painful periods, just go back on birth control. No, that's not solving the deeper issue, and it's making things worse. So stress on the liver from birth control and obviously other things, but that can cause that buildup of estrogen. Gut dysbiosis, so imbalanced gut bacteria or any type of gut infection. So thinking like H. pylori, candida, low levels of beneficial bacteria. You have to have a healthy gut to have healthy hormones. So this is huge and never looked at in relation to periods because people don't realize the strong connection between the two of them. But your gut impacts your hormones impact your gut. So we have to look at all the different facets when it comes to period issues like this. Blood sugar dysregulation. So if you are not consistently eating throughout the day, you should be eating within 1 hour of waking up. Coffee does not count. Ideally, you should be having your coffee with a meal that has carbs, protein, and fat. And every 3 to 4 hours, you should be fueling throughout the day. If you're going long periods of time, and I classify long as anything longer than 4 hours, then you're going to have blood sugar dysregulation, where your blood sugar is going to spike, it's going to dip. That not only is going to make you feel crappy, where you're just low on energy, brain fog, fatigue, sugar cravings, but it's also going to lead to inflammation in your body. So when you have that inflammation from the blood sugar dysregulation, that is a stressor on your body, and that can play a huge role in period issues like painful periods. Blood sugar crashes as well, they trigger cortisol spikes. So this increases that inflammation and that period pain. So it's really important to fuel your body appropriately throughout the day. There are some targeted supplements that can help with this, but I really hone in on lifestyle with this because eating throughout the day and getting those nutrients in, that's going to benefit your entire body and all of these root causes versus just throwing a supplement at something. But supplements like berberine, myoinositol can be helpful as an adjunct to these lifestyle changes or modifications. Thyroid dysfunction. So if you have a low thyroid function, as in hypothyroidism, this can lead to heavier and more painful periods. And there's tons and tons of things that you can do to support your thyroid outside of medication. That's another thing. What's causing your slower thyroid? A lot of times it's nutrient deficiencies, low potassium, low iodine, not eating enough throughout the day, stress. We can do so much to support your thyroid, therefore support your period with nutrition and lifestyle. We talked about chronic stress and cortisol. So just another thing with this, I think I mentioned earlier, but I'll repeat. High cortisol from chronic stress depletes progesterone. This can lead to the estrogen dominance we talked about and increased period pain. Stress also depletes magnesium and B vitamins, as well as many other vitamins and minerals, leading to the worsening of cramping and period pain. So you can see how all of these things are puzzle pieces that really go together and play off of each other. It's usually not just one thing, but there's this domino effect. Toxin and xenoestrogen exposure, some examples of this would be plastics, some personal care products. You have to be really picky with your personal care products, pesticides, birth control pills, and other medications. This can contribute to estrogen dominance and inflammation. I always tell people, don't be crazy obsessive with living a clean life. Like this is where you have to also support your detox pathways, your gut, your liver. But it's worth looking at, what is the toxic level that is in my home and in my products? Can I switch out some things to be less toxic? And the Environmental Working Group is a great resource for that. EWG.org, I think, is their website. And you can look at a bunch of different products and see what their toxic load is and just make a judgment call of like, okay, like this one's pretty high. I can switch out for a cleaner version, or I love this toxic candle. I cannot live without it. I'm going to keep that, but I'm going to balance it out somewhere else. So don't stress yourself out too much with living completely clean. I personally don't think it's possible. And I also think that the stress caused by trying to do that is more inflammatory than just having that toxic candle here and there. But it's very personalized of what products you use. But that is something that can lead to painful periods. And unfortunately, there are so many toxins in our everyday life that we're exposed to. That's a whirlwind of all the things that can cause painful periods. So hopefully you see that there's so much within your control that you can target. You just have to know what your root causes are. And that's where the functional testing I do with clients is so helpful, because then we have data of what exactly are your root causes to your period pain. And most of the time when someone's having painful periods, there's other symptoms as well, whether it's acne, hair loss, anxiety, depression, mood disorders. There's a lot going on. Typically, this is one piece of their puzzle. So as an overview, root causes of painful periods are inflammation, hormone imbalances, nutrient deficiencies, gut and liver dysfunction, blood sugar dysregulation, thyroid dysfunction, chronic stress, toxin exposure. And we briefly touched on PCOS as well. I didn't mention yet endometriosis. This is a condition where the endometrial tissue grows outside the uterus, which can cause severe pain, inflammation, and scarring. Like PCOS, I just want to be careful with this, because both of these are true diagnoses, and a lot of times doctors don't do the deeper digging of, okay, is this actually endometriosis, or are we assuming it is, therefore take birth control? The woman I was talking to was under this, where she had really painful periods, and then doctor just assumed she had endometriosis. Seemingly there wasn't any testing done to confirm or deny that. And so now she's on birth control and really terrified of getting off, but she's having all these symptoms being on birth control, like hair loss, anxiety, acne, and she's just feeling really hopeless. So hopefully this episode is helpful for her. Let's talk about what to do about this. There are plenty of things to do, like I've said multiple times. So let's talk about food first options, because that's my favorite. The first one is to increase omega-3 intake. So this is going to be your fish, specifically your fattier fish like salmon. Ground flax seeds, walnuts are amazing. You could also consider supplementing with like a cod liver oil. I have that on my full script, the brand that I like, but I use that a lot in practice, especially if you've listened to my acne podcast episodes. A lot of women are low in vitamin A, and cod liver is a great source of omega-3s and retinol for skin health too. Moderation with seed oils. Again, I don't want to say cut these out completely, because I don't want to enlist any food fear, but an easy thing you can do is at home, cook more with olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil. And then when you're out and about, or, I know sometimes with baking recipes, like it's just easier to use canola oil. Like as long as you're not baking with canola oil and eating that all the time, you're fine. So spices are amazing. You could do turmeric and ginger. They're both powerful anti-inflammatories that help reduce cramping. Also, vitamin E is something that I have like a little PMS toolkit that I give my clients I work with. And vitamin E is anti-inflammatory as well. It's a great supplement to use in addition to magnesium before and during periods if painful periods are happening to you. Cinnamon is another spice that you can utilize as well. This is helpful for blood sugar management. And like, who doesn't love just sprinkling cinnamon on food? And I put it in smoothies, oatmeal, energy bites, yogurt. There's so much you can do with it. Things to support hormone balance specifically with food. So cruciferous vegetables. So think like your broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. This helps support liver detox and is just really helpful for your liver and your detoxification pathways. B6 rich foods, so bananas, chickpeas, salmon. Magnesium, this is one where I do recommend supplementation with it. And you could do some iron-rich foods too. So specifically when you're on your period, if you have a heavy flow, doing iron-rich foods, I would much prefer this over an iron supplement. So this is going to be your grass-fed beef, spinach, lentils, pumpkin seeds. I'll link it below. I have a cycle syncing ebook. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Cycle Syncing Your Nutrition. It's geared towards people who have stopped birth control, but this is, I think, helpful for anyone. So I'm going to drop that below. And if you're interested in that, I talk about eating for each phase of your menstrual cycle, and iron-rich foods is something we talk about when you're actively having your period. Because of birth control's impact on the gut too, I want to give a little shout out for probiotic-rich foods. So these are your fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, kefir. These are going to be really helpful in supporting your gut, which your gut is a detoxification system for estrogen, and it helps balance your microbiome as well. Some other things to consider, just lifestyle things, are, like I said earlier, eating consistently throughout the day, eating within an hour of waking up and eating every couple of hours while you're awake. Most of the time, people are not doing this. They're skipping breakfast, they're having coffee instead, which that right there is going to be a stress on your body because it's stimulative and it's going to spike your blood sugar and have that dip, which causes that inflammation. So make for sure you're having something with your coffee, eating a meal or a snack within an hour of waking up, and then consistently throughout the day. This is one thing you're going to feel so much better. I promise you, if you commit to this, you're going to feel so, so much better. And this is going to be huge for your hormone symptoms and your gut. Promise. Managing stress. This is something that's going to be so individualized, but figuring out how to manage your stress, what works for you. This could be taking a couple of deep breaths throughout the day, journaling, talking to a friend, disconnecting from work or your phone, making time for activities that you enjoy, making sure you're getting enough sleep. That's huge. Maybe it's nourishing yourself throughout the day. I would consider that stress management if that's something big you have to do. Saying no to things, setting up healthy boundaries. There's a lot of things we can do around stress management. And I know that's a really hard one for people, but it's huge. And the last thing, just minimizing as much as you can those toxins. So like the plastics, the synthetic fragrances, those can have an impact. So just kind of taking stock and combing through what you're consuming and if there's ways to decrease that as well. Oh, and then one last one I forgot to mention for thyroid health specifically, filtering out fluoride. So getting a water filter that filters out fluoride if your water is fluoridated, and switching to a fluoride-free toothpaste is big. I can link the one that I like below and the water filter that I like below. So key recaps, there's plenty of things that are in your control that cause painful periods, and really addressing those through working with a professional, doing those functional lab testing for that personalized support is going to make a huge impact. And there is a way to be off birth control and have pain-free, symptom-free periods. You just have to have the right support and the right plan to know exactly what your body needs. Because having period pain is a call for help from your body. It's not your body hurting you. It's your body telling you, hey, something is wrong. I need you to listen to me. And taking birth control is not doing that. It's, in fact, adding fuel to the fire and making things worse, unfortunately. So I want to empower you to know that you can change things. You don't have to be stuck on birth control to have pain-free periods. And again, having the right plan and the right support is crucial. So I'm going to put the ultimate guide to cycle syncing your nutrition in the show notes, as well as some of those other resources I mentioned. And if you are interested in transitioning off birth control and want more information about my process or helping clients do that, I have my free Breakup with Birth Control Masterclass that I'll link again below. And this details my 4 steps and all the functional labs I run with clients to really identify what's going on in relation to their symptoms, including painful periods, and how we navigate that and get them healed so they can have a smooth transition off. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like it, share a review, send it to a friend or family member who needs to hear this information. I really, really appreciate your support. And until next time, stay nourished.